of the Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome to this baby we call The Sweat, a show we bring you every Saturday and Sunday morning live from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time on DraftKings Network and VSiN. I am your host for the next 2 hours, Emerson Latzia, sitting alongside Mr. Steve Buchanan. Julian Edlow is here once again. How we feeling this morning, everybody? Fresh, ready to rock after last night's Final Four?
Never been fresher.
I've seen you in much fresher shape, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, today's show, stacked. Trust me, we have a graphic that backs me up on that. The field of 68 down to 2 teams. The NCAA Men's National Championship game is set. It's going to be a battle of top seeds tomorrow night. Number 1 Purdue, number 1 UConn in the Natty. Ladies first, though, this afternoon, a dream championship matchup. We got Sabrina Merchant from The Athletic joining the show live later on to break it all down. Plus, we'll be inside Masters Week come tomorrow, and we're dishing out best bets, value plays, DFS salaries. We're breaking it all down for you. Jeff, Matt, and Len standing by to lend a hand. What do you say we start this show the way we start this show every time we bring you this show, and that is by working up a sweat. We are super smooth this morning on this fine Sunday. Jules, I'll let you go first because we spent some time together last night watching basketball games.
Yeah.
What do you got here as your warm-up bet? What are we working up a sweat about?
Yeah, I was watching basketball. You were mostly eating appetizers in the corner. I
was ordering ribs from the
sparking up conversations that people were trying to get out of. UConn is my takeaway, really. Like, I think a lot of people were cheering for NC State, and they were a great story. They ran into a better team. It was the best team they had played during their run, and eventually it was going to catch up to them. And I think that's what we saw in that game. Definitely the less entertaining of the two games. But UConn, they just take anyone's best punch. Like, Alabama came out and did exactly what they needed to do in order to win that game. They came out, started 7 of 10 from 3, which is exactly what they needed to do. Take a lot of them, make a lot of them, and it was working, but it was still neck and neck the whole way. It turns into a 4-point game at half. Turns into a game that Alabama is in throughout the whole second half.
Then UConn goes on that run, right?
UConn just finds a little spot to put their foot on the gas, and that takes care of that. It lands on 14. They cover again. They're 11-0 in this tournament run the last 2 years, straight up and against the spread. We said, if Alabama's going to cover this game, they're going to have to give them the best game of anybody yet, because their most narrow margin of victory, UConn, in these last 2 tournaments was 13. Lands 14, still doesn't get close enough, and now definitely the best team that UConn has played is about to be Purdue. It's the best team they'll see in these last 2 tournaments.
Yep.
6-point
favorite, UConn opens.
Yeah, if you're betting against UConn, whether it's Purdue, Alabama, or anybody else, you're just stepping in front of a buzzsaw.
And Jules, this journey looks pretty familiar because remember last year the Huskies rattled off victories of 10-plus points in every March Madness game. They became the 5th team to record a double-digit margin in all 6 NCAA tournament wins, and they could do it again tomorrow night.
They can. I think they will. I mean, this is UConn or pass, and you're probably not passing because it's the national championship game. I got enough futures where I'll probably just be rooting for UConn to win here. But we'll break the whole game down later in the show in our college hoop segment. But you're not betting against UConn. You don't want to do that to yourself. I will say the total's interesting. UConn can really get out and score. They did against Alabama, who plays fast-paced. Purdue's going to slow it down, dump it down to Edey. You got that matchup with Clang, the first guy that probably really has a chance of guarding Edey straight up. Total's been bet down a couple points already overnight from 148 to 146. That would be an underlook. Not that UConn can't pull away, but I think that, and I might just look and wait and go first half because these teams are going to feel each other out. A lot of dumping the ball down low. I think we're going to see a little bit of a grind early, and then as we've become accustomed to, UConn second half, go ahead and pull away.
I mean, I just feel like there are no underdogs here at this stage of the game. It's Goliath versus Goliath.
No, there's an underdog, and it's Purdue.
Okay. I mean, if you pick the Boilermakers, I mean, there is an easy explanation to why you would take them. And then if you prefer UConn, I mean, the reason is pretty straightforward as well. What do you have? Did you watch that game last night, or you were more into WrestleMania?
He was watching men in their underwear tackle each other in the ring.
That's like me.
I would say WrestleMania is also very much in right now. So
absolutely it is. You have stars in sports around the world who were watching last night and tweeting about it. So, Jules, chill out.
Nice.
I know how much you like.
Yeah.
Watching.
I don't really see the comparison between Final Four and watching men in their underwear with masks on.
That doesn't
each
do it
other
for
to
you.
the floor, but
it does it for me, and I know it does it for you.
Does it for me, and we're really hoping that Roman Reigns pulls through tonight and defeats Cody Rhodes. That's what we're hoping.
You're going to be at a big watch party tonight.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss that, but that is true.
All right, what are you warming up?
So we're going to kind of go off of what we were talking about yesterday because we have an update from when the show ended to this morning, which was the Spencer Strider news.
Oh.
We also lost Shane Bieber yesterday. Shane Bieber's going to get Tommy John surgery, kind of rattled up the American League Central standings or future standings and how that looks. But we got news that Strider does have damage to his UCL and now is going to see the famous doctor that does all the Tommy John surgeries. It's actually gotten so out of control, Emerson, that the MLB Players Association has basically come out and said they think that the new pitch clock is the reason for a lot of these injuries.
Oh,
and then Tony,
I fell in love with baseball when that pitch clock.
I hate this story already.
And then Tony Clark is coming back and saying, no, it's fine. But there has to be some concern because we already have had 3 major pitchers go down that need Tommy John, or potentially 3. Perez with the Marlins, Shane Bieber with the Guardians, and now potentially Spencer Strider with the Braves. Now, there was some interesting movement with the division yesterday. We were talking about this with the National League East. Is this a time to potentially look at the Phillies? The Braves got down to minus 300 to win the division, which is still crazy.
Yep.
But now it's back up to minus 350. Phillies are at plus 300 to win the division right now. But then, literally exactly what I was talking about yesterday took place in that Braves game against the Diamondbacks yesterday. Max Fried went out there, and this is somebody I'm a little worried about in that rotation. Went out there against the Diamondbacks, 4 1/3 inning, 7 runs allowed, 7 earned runs, 8 total runs on 10 hits against the Diamondbacks. The Braves were able to come back and win that game against the Diamondbacks, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Braves might have to be in these slugfests moving forward because that rotation is nearly not as strong as it's going to be without Strider. Because right now you have Max Fried, who went yesterday. You have Chris Sale, who's going today. You have Ronaldo Lopez in that rotation. You have an aging Charlie Morton in that rotation. And then to replace Spencer Strider, it's going to be either Bryce Elder or Dylan Dodd. Like, those are not viable replacements by any means. So now we have this unbelievably dynamic offense that's going to have to bail out this starting rotation, what feels like day in and day out. So now, is this an opportunity to potentially go on the Phillies? I think this is. If you have backed the Braves already, I think it makes sense here to get some money here on the Phillies. We're at 3-1 right now because this is a 2-team race. There is no other team, and I'm telling you right now, it is April 7th, I'm telling you right now, there is no other team in the National League East that is going to contend for a division title. Not the Mets, certainly not the Marlins, who have not even won a freaking game yet. It's April 7th, they still haven't won a game, and they somehow still have better odds to win the division than the Nationals, so that tells you everything you need to know about the Nationals. Those 3 teams are not going to be in contention for the title. So you're already down on April 7th. You're already down to a 2-team race. If you're in on the Braves, it makes sense to get some money into the Phillies as well because it's going to be one of those 2 teams. But I think as this moves on, and if what I'm thinking with this rotation happens, Phillies odds are going to start to creep a little bit closer to the Braves, and then it's going to be like, well, I could have got 3-1, 2 weeks ago or a month ago at this point. So I think this is going to be a lot closer than the odds are set right now. It's going to be a tight race because the Braves offense can carry this team, as we just saw last night. But without Strider, you look at that rotation 1 through 5, it is looking awfully, awfully flimsy at this point.
We'll get some more MLB bets from you coming up. We'll break down the Final Four more with you, Jules, coming up as well. I know you guys are not big golf dudes, but does Masters Week do anything for you guys? Like even just maybe being a casual fan, you guys get pretty fired up for it.
Yeah, it reminds me not to bet on Jordan Spieth because everybody's going to tell you that Jordan Spieth plays well at the Masters. And all I know is the time that I bet him at the Masters, he played like me and had like a shot a 13 on the 15th hole or whatever it was.
Well, let me help you. Consider for a value play.
Isn't Jeff coming on today?
Let's go. Yeah,
I'll see
and
what
we're going to
Jeff
break.
says.
We got 2 master segments coming up. We're going to talk one DFS. We're going to talk one bet.
I will make a DFS lineup, and I am going to bet on it.
It's awesome. So listen to Len Hochberg in this show coming up.
Lineup's not going to do well.
Corey Connors. Speaking of Jeff, Jeff's Canadian. Corey Connors is Canadian. Jeff says I'm crazy to do this. I'm just saying for a value play.
Great.
Plus 6,500 outright. Corey Connors, even better, plus 500 for a top 10 finish. He was plus 6,000 yesterday outright, likely moving because he played like absolute dog crap at the Valero. But hot damn, that's a big number for a player who's registered 3 top 10s in his 4 appearances in the Masters. He was a popular pick to win this week at the Valero. He has not been playing fantastic. That's okay. He's won this event twice. Previously won this event on 2 occasions. He's currently just outside the top 10. He's about like 10 strokes off the lead here. But there are not many guys, gentlemen, who you could say have 3 top 10s in their last 4 appearances at Augusta, okay? Also, when the odds come out, I said it on the show weeks ago, bet Tiger Woods to make the cut. He's made 23 straight. He's made 23 straight. He'll set the record with 24. Does it finish the weekend? I don't know. He gave up sex to focus on his Masters preparation. All right, coming up, let's flex on him. We've warmed up. Time to clang and bang. We're ripping through more bets on today's slate next. All right, folks, we've warmed up. It is now time to crush a fun little circuit. I know you guys are big circuit guys inside the gym. Time to exercise our betting chops. in every area imaginable, if you know what I mean. A little bit of everything in this segment. So let's go back to the Final Four here, Jules. What else stood out to you? Because right now you got Purdue. This is going to be tomorrow night. Purdue, and you have UConn, and you have the Boilermakers seeking their first championship in program history. On the other side, UConn aiming to become the first back-to-back March Madness champion in nearly 2 decades here, dude.
Yeah, I would say the early pace stands out to me. I mean, I like UConn. If you've been watching the show, obviously, I like UConn.
Yeah, you love UConn, dude.
Impressed with what Purdue has done, somewhat of Virginia vibes, being that 1 seed that comes back from the 16 loss, making it a mission, getting here. In any other year, you know, I would say maybe this is Purdue's year, but UConn is too good in my mind. But from what I see in the box score you're looking at there, Purdue struggled to score against NC State. I think they're really going to struggle to score against UConn. I think Purdue can slow UConn more than more than an Alabama or an Illinois, certainly. So I think the under is worth a look. I would lay the points with UConn. Hopefully you got something in your pocket where you just need them to win and you don't have to lay any points. But I do like UConn in the game, and I do like the under, and I'm just looking. We do have the half up. So first half total is 69. I would look under there. And obviously that's going to be a number that's, you know, significantly less than the second half total. But again, I think there's going to be a feeling out process early in this game. I think Purdue and even UConn are going to have 2-3 minute stretches where they can go scoreless. So I think we're going to struggle to see points here, and the difference in the game is going to be just like UConn last night. Finish strong, go on a run, win by margin. I think they'll get it done by double digits, but I'll go under. I think we're going to struggle to score early.
Talk to me about Purdue's supporting cast here and how crucial they are going to be tomorrow night, because you had Zach Edey, who put together a quality game last night, 20 points, 12 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks. He absolutely played an important role in that victory, yet he also didn't score for a 13-minute stretch there, and it really hardly mattered, Jules.
All those numbers you said, plus 5 turnovers, which shows me if you swarm him in the post, you can force him into mistakes. And they're going to have really one of the only guys that can match up with him in the post, in Clang. So, you know, there's a lot of things I like about UConn, but one of the main things is that they can afford to play Edey straight up at times with Clang. And that leaves, you know, that just keeps your options open. So you also got Braden Smith, point guard. Everybody likes to give him his flowers. He shot 1 for 9 last night and also had 5 turnovers. You got to think he's going to have a better game, but sophomore point guard, he's going to be going up against bigger guards, good defensive guards, guys like Castle, Newton, guys that are going to put pressure on him and can force him to make mistakes again. So I would watch out for Purdue turning the ball over, which also plays into the under that we talked about. And I just think UConn's defense is going to be the difference in the game, and the ability to play Edey straight up at times with Clang, and when they bring that double, force mistakes. So I see UConn in a grinder, pulling away by double digits.
Bukes, on the diamond, we're seeing Yamamoto really start to find his groove a little bit here for the Dodgers in terms of like takeaways, I guess, from yesterday and maybe moving forward, some bets you have for today. Yamamoto pitched 5 scoreless innings for the 2nd straight start, and then you had Max Muncy with 2 hits, including a double, a 2-run single here. We know how dangerous the Dodgers are. The story with them is going to be what can they do come postseason time here. But to see this guy who was taking some time in spring training to adjust to baseball over here, like we're starting to see him put together, and that's scary if you're playing this Dodgers team.
Yeah, especially too when you look at Yamamoto, like his strikeout props are just going to continue to climb here. Like 11 innings pitched now. I think it's 15 total strikeouts that he has, gives him a 12.2 K9.
Attack those props now early. Huh?
Yeah, like especially against teams that are prone to striking out, like when they end up playing like, you know, Oakland or whatever, or a team like the Tigers that do strike out a lot. Like his strikeout stuff has just been downright nasty, and we're really kind of seeing the potential that the Dodgers obviously saw in him. That's why they gave him that 12-year contract that basically is going to make him a Dodger for life. But yeah, after that South Korea series against the Padres, when it was like, well, you know, bad spring training, bad first start of the year, is he going to have issues adjusting to the major league level, at least over the past 2 starts, he's definitely looked like the guy they wanted to bring on from Japan.
And then are you seeing anything more out of the Yankees? I know you've been a guy who has not been very high on them, but all of a sudden you're seeing Judge and Stanton kind of come together and start mashing bombs out to the people in the seats here.
Well, not only that, they took out Kevin Gausman very early yesterday, and that's somebody who was a
9-8 win over the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and this is and I'm fantastic. I gave out under 8 in that game. That ended up scoring 17 runs, but definitely didn't anticipate Gausman getting as lit up as he did. I think they scored 3 runs in the first, and it just was kind of curtains for Gausman out of that. But when that team starts hitting, I mean, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Still don't know how this is going to pan out for the whole season. It's nice we can get going in the early going here, but we already have guys like DJ LeMay who's on the injured list already. Is Rizzo going to be able to hold up for a whole season here? So still a lot of questions to be answered, but to their credit, 7-2 to start the year.
What, if anything, is on your baseball betting card for today?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks here of over 3.5 runs going against the Braves and Chris Sale. This is one of my favorite plays of the day already.
Sale
right now.
day, huh?
It is Sale day, but we'll see how he does against the Diamondbacks, who are one of the best teams at hitting lefties so far this season. Already on the year. This includes the numbers against Max Fried yesterday. 414 WOBA with a 154 WRC plus against lefties already on the year. 26 runs scored against lefties. That is the most in the league already this season. Sale had a good first start when he pitched against the Phillies, but he definitely had some good luck tied with that too as well. His expected ERA in that matchup was 9.01 despite allowing only 2 runs. So that basically tells you that his defense behind him certainly bailed him out on at least a couple of plays here, because that start could have gone a lot worse for Chris Sale. When you see the way the Diamondbacks are swinging the ball right now, granted they're only 3-4 I think on the season right now, but they are putting up some legit offensive numbers right now, giving them at over 3.5 runs.
So when Chris Sale's elbow falls off, he
looks different. His velocity's back. He literally looks like the Chris Sale when he joined the Red Sox. As long as he avoids riding bikes.
That should hold up for at least 3 innings.
They are not going to take away the pitch clock, though. I will tell you that. They are not going to take that away.
All right. Well, I'm happy about that. You got baseball season about a week into the year. You have a week left in the NBA season, Jules. The playoff picture's coming into focus. You got 13 teams right now. I've already clinched postseason spots. Still plenty to be decided in the regular season's closing games here. What is the strategy as we have 7 days left? Play-in tournament starts April 16th. Is there anything that people can take advantage of right now in the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, the strategy, to be honest, is be careful. We got a lot of big games coming up that we can bet. You got to look into these games before you bet them. You got to do that in general, but more so now. Who's in? Who's out? What are teams playing for? You got the Celtics, a 16-point favorite over the Blazers today. The Celtics have the 1 seed in the NBA locked up. We saw against the Kings on Friday night, they played their starters for a period of time and then let their bench, third string really, close the game against a Kings team trying to win for playoff position. And the Celtics wound up winning by 1. Now, the Celtics might do that again today. The difference is, I don't know if this is a spot that you can come back and bet Portland live, because Portland stinks and they're trying to tank for lottery position. So you just need to know the scenario that you're getting into here. What I will say in terms of games that catch my eye, Milwaukee has lost 3 games in a row as a double-digit favorite. They're 3.5-point favorites over the Knicks in a game both teams should want. Tempting to go against Milwaukee when they're playing so poorly. Also, could be considered a buy low spot. The 2 games that catch my eye the most are Suns and Pelicans. Suns recently beat the Pelicans. Both of these teams are playing for playoff position. Phoenix has won 4 of 5. They're playing pretty well. They're laying 6 at home. Zion is questionable with a finger injury. This is going to drop a point or 2 if he gets ruled in. Could move up a little bit if he's ruled out. I'll wait and see on Zion probably and maybe play on that game. But either way, I think the Suns win it if you're building a 2-team money line parlay or something. The other decent game is Minnesota and the Lakers. That number's coming down. A lot of early money piling on Minnesota.
Lakers just clinched that play-in spot, too. I think it was on Friday night.
Okay, yeah, and the Lakers are playing really well lately. Are they going to give LeBron and AD any rest or even cut their minutes before the postseason starts? We'll see. But again, this is need-to-know stuff before you bet these games. So One thing that I will say, here's the only bet that I like so far. Emmanuel Quickly, Raptors, over 33.5 points, rebounds, assists. He was just shy of a triple-double last game. You can see in his stats, when he doesn't do well, it's because of teams that are just blowing them out. But today, it's the Wizards. The Wizards aren't good. So if there's a game he can put up numbers, it's this one.
All right, well, I know neither one of you guys is in true circuit shape, so you guys can both.
I'm in the best shape of my life.
Are you really? I've
Yeah.
seen some old pictures of you.
I hide it well.
Yeah, you really, really do, my sweet chinchilla. Take a breather, both of you. Chinmay is standing by, which can mean only one thing. Football is life. Talking Premier League bets that tickle his fancy. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what's life? Football is life. And when we have questions about said sport, we bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Chinmay Vaidya of DraftKings Network. This dude's pretty good at making your money. For example, last week on this program, he says Man City and Arsenal bet a draw. And like you predicted, Chinmay, making all the folks at home some money. Go ahead, man. Take a victory lap. Did that one sting a little bit for you, though? You know, because, you being a big Arsenal guy?
Let me tell you, I also took Arsenal double chance, which I mentioned on the program. So if you took both bets there, you hit on both of them. And I will say that Arsenal missed a few easy chances, but Manchester City had plenty of opportunities as well. And Arsenal's back line was struggling a little bit trying to clear the ball. So I think I'm happy with the draw based on where the Gunners stand on the table. I still think there's a good chance of an opportunity to catch Liverpool, which I'm sure we'll talk about here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you got to, I'll take the draw away from home. That's a place that Arsenal has struggled at Manchester City. So ultimately, I'm happy with the result.
Man, Chinmay, I'm going to start listening to you, dude, for sure. I highly recommend everyone else does as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Liverpool right now because they were a big beneficiary of that draw. Beat Brighton, jumped up to the top of the table. They got the 3-1 win against Sheffield on Thursday here. So in good position right now. Big test today coming up against Man United, my friend. Can they get it done after a game just a few days ago? Maybe some weary, tired legs here.
Manchester United is one of the toughest teams to predict in the Premier League. They just gave away a game to Chelsea in the last 10 minutes when they were up big. They're a very hard team to predict. They've beaten Aston Villa twice. They beat Liverpool in the FA Cup quarterfinal, but they've also drawn against Brentford. They lost to Fulham. They lost to Nottingham Forest. So this is a team that has been all over the place in terms of results. They have the talent certainly to compete with Liverpool. And Liverpool have not been great away from home, 8-4-2. So they're not tremendous away from home. This was a draw last time out, a 0-0 draw, I believe, the last time these two teams played. I have to take Liverpool at -150 on the money line, but I'm not too confident in this one given Man United's ability to be volatile. There's a chance that they could break out and score 3 goals in the first half. There's also an opportunity that they could, be blown out 4-0. So I'll take Liverpool as the more consistent team, but this is a chance for Man United to right the ship after a really, really tough result against Chelsea.
Wait, so am I seeing this correctly here, Chinmay? Man United has won just one of their last 11 league games against Liverpool. How has this been so one-sided?
United just haven't been able to bring in the talent that they had in the past. We're still used to this Man United team, this myth of Manchester United that has been so dominant throughout much of the Premier League. But the reality is that this club just hasn't been able to bring in the caliber of players that Manchester City, Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, and even Arsenal have been able to bring in over the last few seasons. And the results show. Man United really need to figure out what's going on there. It started with managerial issues. Ever since Sir Alex Ferguson has stepped down, that club hasn't been the same, and it's been largely due to his ability to identify and recruit top players, and they just haven't been able to do that.
All right, so we know that this match has huge ramifications there in the Premier League title race in terms of champions' futures here. They lock up a title with a win, do you think?
There's no such thing as a lock until
that's true.
It's all said and done,
yep.
Especially in this season. Liverpool can't really afford to drop any points because Arsenal have a superior goal differential on Liverpool. So even a draw could technically hurt Liverpool in any scenario. I think the biggest loser in all this really is Manchester City. They really needed to defeat Arsenal on Sunday, last Sunday, to have a shot in this title because they need Liverpool to drop multiple games. I believe Liverpool has the edge on goal differential over Man City. So Man City is really in a tough position here. The one good thing for Liverpool is that Arsenal and Manchester City both have to deal with Champions League games midweek. And Liverpool has Europa League games, but we all know that Europa League games don't really matter that much. And this is Jurgen Klopp's last season. He's stepping down at the end of the season. So Liverpool will be focused on the title race. So if that means giving away a Europa League game to rest some of their top players, they're going to do it. Whereas Arsenal and Manchester City, it's going to be hard for them to justify resting some of their guys in a Champions League game. So that could be something that Liverpool really benefits from. Right. I would give the edge to Liverpool right now. given the narrative, but there's no room for slippage.
What's another bet on the DK Sportsbook right now for this Sunday slate that catches your eye?
I really don't like backing any type of Tottenham prop whatsoever. But Son Heung-min has been one of my favorite players this season. He's been on an absolute tear in terms of scoring goals. Tottenham should score a lot of goals in this game, and I'll take Son at -120 to get a goal. He's got 5 in the last 7 games. I think he keeps it going here.
All right, Champions League. Let's get over there. Quarterfinal matchups are set, my sweet chinchilla, and I need you to break it down for me here. So this Arsenal is at Bayern. Who's got your bet on this one?
So if there was ever a good time to play Bayern Munich, it would be right now. They're really struggling. They're probably going to lose the Bundesliga for the first time since 2011-12, which is a really long time. That's a hard competition to take over Bayern. So this club is really struggling right now. I would take Arsenal at home on the money line -120, but I do think that Harry Kane is the X factor here. Harry Kane was brought in specifically for Bayern to win Champions League. Bayern have struggled against some of the top teams, even in the Bundesliga. They just lost to Dortmund for the first time in the last 10 head-to-head meetings. I think they had 9 wins and a draw going into that game where they lost. So I'll have to take Arsenal here. Just a better team in better form right now. But I do think Harry Kane has a lot of experience playing in England and has scored a lot of goals at Emirates Stadium. So that's the X factor there. But I do like Arsenal in this one in the first leg.
Are Kane and Haaland on the same planet?
Kane has the track record, right? Okay. Haaland is on an amazing pace right now, but Harry Kane just has the track record, both domestically and even internationally, that Haaland has a long way to catch up to, but he's certainly on a great pace. I think those two are definitely in the conversation when you talk about top goal scorer.
Yeah, I'm seeing that debate brought up quite a bit across the pond. Also on Tuesday, Real Madrid, Man City. Best bet in this one? What do you got?
These two teams are really tired of seeing each other in the Champions League knockout stage. This is the 4th time since the 2020 competition that they'll be meeting in the knockout round. I'm going to go with Real Madrid, Man City under 2.5 goals, which comes in at +105. Real Madrid have not lost a game at home this season yet. They're an excellent defensive side, and they're just going to want to be in the mix going into that second leg at City. And the last time these two teams met in the Champions League, which was last season, the leg in Real Madrid was a 1-1 draw. So I do think it'll be under 2.5 goals. I think Real Madrid will try to play more defensive, try to contain Man City and hope that they don't fall into too much of a deficit going into that second leg. So I like the under there. It comes in at plus money.
All right. Then we also got Dortmund and Atletico de Madrid here. These sides hoping to end lengthy droughts in terms of reaching the semifinals here. So what is going to be your approach, and who do you like to advance?
Atletico Madrid is a really tough team to face at home. They're an excellent defensive side. Diego Simeone is one of the best tacticians there is when it comes to setting up for a team. But I think Dortmund double chance at +100 is just too much value to pass up on. Dortmund have found their form, 5-0 in their last 5 games across all competitions. Just got a big win over Bayern recently to break that rut. So I think Dortmund have the edge here. And even if they don't get a win, you still get the draw here on the double chance at +100. So give me the German side in this one.
All right, Chinmay. PSG, Barcelona. What stands out to you here? What do we need to be paying attention to before placing bets on the DK Sportsbook for this one? You got to tell us.
This would have been a colossal clash 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. This would be a headliner game, but these clubs have dropped off so much. The storyline surrounding PSG is, when is the end for Kylian Mbappe? It seems like he's going to be gone at the end of the season. Barcelona have just been all over the place ever since Lionel Messi departed. Xavi stepping down as manager. They're in a bit of a funk as well, and their midfield is kind of missing in action. A lot of their top midfielders are injured. So I think PSG, they're ultimately focused on winning this competition with Kylian Mbappe. This is their last chance to do it, and they don't really care about domestic play. They don't really have to worry about that. They're comfortably ahead of second place in Ligue 1. So I think I'm going to go with a draw here just because I think both teams have the ability to score goals and not stop them. There's not a lot of defense on both sides, and PSG have not shown any ability to control a midfield, which is where you can really hurt Barcelona recently. So I think I'll go with the draw here. Plus 280 provides great value. And I think, both these clubs just need to find their footing, but this is a great chance to do it, given how the Champions League bracket has been set up for them.
Seems like Real Madrid stands alone as the sole destination for Mbappe. Very quickly here, bias aside, your future bet at the moment here, talking Champions League. Man City favored over your Arsenal squad. Quickly, Chinmay.
Given how the bracket is set up, I think the value is great on Real Madrid at plus 650, because if they beat Man City, they're kind of clear.
Appreciate you, dude. We'll see you hopefully next week. Masters Week starts tomorrow. Another shot at becoming a millionaire on DraftKings. We're going to help you build a DFS lineup next. wager of the year. And as we usually do here at DraftKings, we dropped DFS prices early. A lot of contests available for you to enter, including another shot at $1 million. There's a millionaire contest there for the taking right now. $10 to enter. If you win, you guessed it, you'll wake up $1 million richer. So to help you build a money-making lineup, let's price check these master salaries with a perfect man for the job, DFS Rider of the Year, Len Hochberg. And would you look at this, Len? The dude, the man of the year thus far on the PGA Tour, Scottie Scheffler, not only priced over $12,000, but he's $900 more than last year's winner, Jon Rahm. What is your approach here, Len? Are you brave enough to roster a salary that fat?
Yeah, Emerson, I was very surprised. I'm glad you brought that up. I was very surprised to see. I mean, Scheffler won and Rahm too, clear. I think that most people agree that's the way to go. But $900 was a big difference. And we are still not sold on Scottie Scheffler's putter. I'm still not sold on Scottie Scheffler's putter. So I think brave is a good word. We will have to, suck it up, take a deep breath. And every time, if we have Scottie Scheffler in our lineup and he's in the back nine on Sunday and he's over on the green, hunched over his ball, we're going to be really worried. So I don't know if I'm brave enough. I think he will be there. I think Rahm will be there on Sunday, but that putter does scare me.
Yeah, it definitely does, although a little bit better this year for sure. Len, who's good enough to challenge Scottie? Let's go to the next group here among the salaries. So we're looking at Rahm, we're looking at Rory, Koepka, Wyndham Clark. Which of these dudes would you pay up for, or are you considering paying up for right now on the eve of Masters Week?
Yeah, I think we have to, consider Rahm for sure and Koepka for sure. I mean, they were 1-2 last year. And I think for the live guys, putting aside all the politics and everything, when these guys come back, they want to play well. They want to show that they are still, the alpha guys and all of that. So not to say that they take it any more seriously than the other guys, but they are really going to be ready to go this for the Masters. Wyndham Clark, interestingly enough, fourth in the world, top, U.S. Open champion, Ryder Cup. He's never played a Masters. He started his real upswing right after the Masters last year. So I was a little surprised to see him this highly priced. I mean, he's really, really a fantastic world-class golfer, but I think it's really hard to win the title or even really contend in your first year. I could see him on the outside of the top 10, but I don't like him at that price.
Yeah, and everyone forgets it was Brooks Koepka who held like a 2-stroke lead entering the final round last year, just couldn't get it done on Sunday there at Augusta. Interesting group here, Len, in the $9,000 range. Xander's there. There's Joaquin Niemann, who everyone knows is receiving the special exemption into this tournament this year. He's fired up. He's going to be motivated. Hovland at 9,500 almost feels like you're getting a little bit of value there. What stands out to you about the guys in this group, Len?
There is a lot of value here, and I think there's an argument to be made. I don't know how strong an argument to maybe avoid all the 10s and load up on maybe 3 guys in the 9s. Xander Schauffele. Xander, we know Xander doesn't win. He doesn't win majors. He doesn't kind of win anywhere, hardly ever, but he's around every week. And one of these days, you figure he is going to, finally pull it off. Jordan Spieth. Is anybody talking about Jordan Spieth?
No, because he's playing terrible golf, Len. That's why. He's had a terrible season.
He has, and he wasn't great last year, but he does seem to play well. Word is he plays well at this golf course, even when things are going bad everywhere else. I will definitely have Jordan Spieth in my top 10 of my rankings. Joaquin Niemann, and as you mentioned, playing, the top guy on LIV right now this year. Interesting thing about Joaquin Niemann that really makes me like him. This will be his 5th Masters. He's gotten better every year. Missed the cut his first time, 40th the next time, 35th the next time, 16th last year. That shows me he's figuring it out. Augusta National takes some reps. He's figuring it out. It wouldn't surprise me if he were getting major television minutes on Sunday. But, the biggest sleeper, and I'm not, maybe that's not the right word, but at the very bottom of the nines, Hideki Matsuyama.
Ooh,
The
yeah.
guy's won the tournament. He seems to finally be over his neck and back issues. Won Riviera, sixth at the Players.
Yep.
He can play at this golf course, and very favorably priced at $9,000. A lot of guys cost more than him.
There were already some reports earlier in the week that he's dealing with the back issues again, some neck issues, but based on his play this season, it does not appear that they're bugging him that much. I look in that range, and Willie Z stands out to me a little bit. I think his ownership projections will be fascinating to watch here, Len, because he's a guy who missed last year's tournament recovering from back surgery. But let's not forget, finished second in 2021 in his tournament debut and followed that up with a T6 in 2022. So he's worked his way back here in 2024. Strong start up and down the past few events, Len.
Yeah, and it goes to, you're right. It goes to my point that there are so many guys in the nines. You can get three of them. I don't know, maybe four. I'm not going to be able to do the math here on the fly like this, but you could really get a balanced lineup and avoid the 6,000s. And, I think if you can pick 3 or 4 guys who have a chance to win, well, that might be better in some regards than having one big guy and everything's got to be, rely on him winning, or you're screwed.
I don't know how deep you can really go on the salary board in the Masters. It's so different from the other majors because there's so many amateurs involved. It's a smaller field. There's so many former champions that really have no shot at winning because they're like 80 years old here. So maybe this $8,000 range is another area where you can maybe find that diamond in the rough. We see DJ there. He set the scoring record when the Masters had a fall finish years ago during the pandemic. Max Homa, 4 top 20s this season, but he struggled here at Augusta National. Your pick du jour in the $8,000 range, or which guys at least grab your attention?
Yeah, Max Homa it's just incredible how poorly he plays in the majors. Of all the top players, he finally got one top 10 in a major. I think it was at the Open Championship last year, but he's never been good at the Masters. He's not really high on my list. Cameron Smith. Okay, we saw him in that Sunday duel 2 years ago with Scottie Scheffler. He didn't win it. He didn't have a good Masters last year. I can give him a pass. He has 3 top 5s through the years at the Masters. I mean, this is the type of stuff that I look at. The guys keep coming back year after year and play well. And at the other end of the 8,000s, Shane Lowry. The guy has 4 top 25s in a row at the Masters. He was 16th last year, 3rd the year before. He has some real ups and downs through the course of the year with his game, but he's coming off a couple of top 5s in Florida at the Cognizant and Bay Hill, and then was top 20 at the Players, playing really well coming in, playing really well at Augusta through the years, only $8,000. I mean, that seems to be, he could fit into any lineup.
All right, Len, how tricky then is this $7,000 range to navigate? You've got some recent major champions in here. We're talking Brian Harman, who takes 3 minutes to hit a shot, and then Matt Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, the thing about Matt Fitzpatrick, if we look at his stats, we look at a lot of the things leading up to this, we're not going to see a lot of great things to look at, but we all know that he had this weird thing right before the Players where they discovered a weight in his driver that he forgot was there for a year, and it's only 4 grams, but that tells you what a professional athlete feels and doesn't feel and the difference and stuff. And so he took that out of his driver and he finished 5th at the Players. He's 10th here last year. He has a best of 7th. I like him a lot in the 7,000s. Hit the Gala debuted last year with a top 10. He was 9th. He's one of the best putters in the world. The thing, Augusta gives you a little leeway off the tee. The Gala sprays the ball around. He's been better at it this year, but I do like his chances. And I don't understand this next one at all. Patrick Reed. I mean, we love him. We love to hate him. We hate him. We hate him. We hate him. But when we're plunking down our money, we want guys who are going to return on the investment. The guy is $7,400. He was top 5 again last year. He's got 3 top 10s in the last 4 years. That doesn't include his victory. I don't understand his pricing at all. 80 to 1. I know that's a conversation for another day. But really, Patrick Reed, $7,400. Come on. He will want to piss people off, win just to piss people off.
And he doesn't have to do anything to piss people off, including his family. Very quickly here, just value as we get to the $6,000 range. Sergio there, and then Big Cat, Tiger Woods at $6,800.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Tiger. I'm probably going to stay away from him in my lineup. I think he'll make the cut. 3 guys in the 6,000s who I like, who I think can make the cut, and then hope for the best. Adam Hadwin, Chris Kirk, Emiliano Grillo. These guys are good at making cuts. Let's get them to the weekend, because you got to get to the weekend, and then maybe you catch a little bit of lightning.
All right, good stuff, Len. It was good to see you again. We'll take a look at the Masters through our sports betting goggles coming up. But first, who Jules likes to win the Natty tomorrow night, and which bets tickle his fancy? right, folks, kicking off the second hour of a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat. What have we covered so far? Steve Buchanan was on this show for a segment, and he has...
That was nice of him to do a segment.
That's right. Don't worry, everybody. He'll be back for the last block. 2 segments, he said. That's on me. That's on me, Steve. So he dished out some MLB bets he likes for today. We had Champions League bets. Chinmay sitting in his throne, dishing out some wonderful bets there. Masters DFS preview. Len just tackled that, and we're going to tackle the sports betting side of it coming up. Also going to help you get a leg up with those Masters bets. Nice little betting primer that VSiN is offering folks.
Masters tip. Know nothing about golf. I just know sports betting. There's a plus 400 favorite. Scotty Scheffler. You can't bet a dude 4-1 in a golf tournament.
No, but...
And that also means... What are you...
My earpiece popped out, dude. It's Sunday morning, relax.
It also means that everybody else, you can get a better number on everybody else. So
wow, very good.
Yeah.
That is kind of like how sports betting works.
I think it's absolutely. A good tournament to find some long shots.
But yeah, no, it could be a situation with that short number on Scotty. It'll be probably better come like Friday, Saturday, maybe, if you want to live bet him a little bit. Let's say if he starts back a few strokes those couple rounds, maybe watch him make that Sunday charge. Who knows? I'd keep an eye on some of those live guys as well, which, again, we'll discuss with Jeff and Matt coming up. Matt's going to be at the Masters later this week. So right now, let's get back into this national title game that is set for tomorrow night, why is this thing tipping off at 9:20?
So that I can get my kids comfortably to bed and have a nice dinner and a couple beers before the game starts.
I hope your kids fail to sleep tomorrow night and ruin your entire Monday night. Anywho, 66 games of this tournament. Our history in the national championship will be decided in game 67 here. We touched on this game a little earlier in the show. UConn-Purdue. Jules, right now, UConn can't stop winning. UConn can't stop covering. The game total last night, 159.5, I think narrowly cashed as well. Will this just be another situation, 6-point favorites against Purdue tomorrow night, where UConn will cover?
I think so. I think it'll be a really good game, a lot like the Alabama game, but lower scoring. I think that Purdue will be able to stay in the game for a while, but UConn goes on a run at some point, and they just get their foot on the gas, and it's tough to come back from, especially when they're doing it late like they did it late against Alabama. So I do like UConn. I got a lot of futures tickets on them that I will be riding out in that one, and maybe I'll get tempted by game time and lay some points, but I would absolutely be laying the points when it comes to the side in that game.
I mean, simply put here, UConn has a single loss since January, has been the strongest team in the country this season. And then when you want to really dive and get analytical here, like Ken Palm's adjusted efficiency metric, the offense leads that entire category and the defense is fourth. It just seems like right now, and this isn't breaking news, this team has hardly any weaknesses.
I mean, you really got to catch them in the right spot to beat them, and I don't think this is one of those spots. Now, UConn could play poorly, and Purdue could play their best game and win the game. UConn's arguably been playing poorly in a lot of these games. Like the Illinois game, they win by 25. They go on a 30-0 run. They shot 3 of 17 from 3. Yeah. And we know how important the 3 ball is. Last night, Alabama shot really well from 3. They lost by 14. So I'm gonna go to the total in this one because I think the total, I'm confident UConn's gonna win. I think the total may be a stronger play than the spread, and I'm going to the under here, and it's ticked down a couple points already. But we think of these teams and some higher scoring. Like Alabama had to push the pace. These heavyweights, they get up big on teams. The other team has to push the pace to try to come back. These two teams are going to be a little bit more of a clash. We're going to see a lot of dumping down to Edey with an actual guy that can guard him in Donovan Clingan. That's going to jam this game up a little bit, give a feeling out process. Tempo, I think the tempo tells us what we need to know. Purdue ranks 175th in tempo rank in the country.
Okay.
UConn, we think of them scoring all these points. UConn ranks 329th in the country in tempo coming into the tournament.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Because,
why don't you?
Well, I'm just saying a lot of people will look at this total. A lot of people see the way these two teams have played basketball this season and think a high-scoring affair because, again, UConn has the top adjusted offensive efficiency in KenPom with Purdue holding the number 3 adjusted offensive efficiency. And you're saying don't buy into that right now?
So they still might be efficient. The things that will change that are, number one, that's going up against everybody and averaged out. Now these are against two of also the better defenses, specifically UConn. It's not like Purdue is going up against UConn every night, so you're getting a tougher defense. And then they can still be as efficient as they want, but when you factor in the tempo numbers, now we're playing a math game, and I know you don't know how to count, but when there's fewer possessions, Steve really liked that off camera.
But I do know how to count. I was really good in pre-algebra.
For sure. So when there's just fewer possessions in the game due to the slower tempo, you can still be efficient on offense and score, but the limited amount of possessions is just going to lower the total in the game. So I'm still looking for the way that I'm going to bet this under. Do I bet under 146 at a bad number that went down a couple points overnight? Is it going to be a feeling out process early where you just go under 69 for the first half? Or do I just want to isolate Purdue? Because I'm most confident in UConn's defense shutting down Purdue. Purdue team total, 70.5. Can look to the under there. UConn didn't give up over 70 all that many times this season.
Okay.
And a lot of them were on the road. You look at the UConn, 3 losses on the road. At Seton Hall when Clang got hurt, at Creighton, and at Kansas. Those are like, talk about spots to lose compared to running into Purdue on a neutral, well prepped for it. Like UConn really only loses tough spot road games.
We know that the offense runs primarily through Edey, but it's really that perimeter game for the Boilermakers that's going to need to step up. And what can you say about Braden Smith and how crucial he is going to be tomorrow night? So it's the second leading scorer for Purdue here, and he's had a relatively quiet tournament, averaging just like 8.5 points per game. So he shot 44% from deep during the regular season, and that number in tournament play has slipped to under 35%.
Yeah, and it didn't look like he liked this football stadium layout going 1 for 9.
It is a spaceship. It's a cool looking
tough.
venue.
It's
but
cool looking.
That is a thing that you hear players talk about when you get into these massive like football-sized venues. Is that depth perception? You know, when you're able to look through the glass, the backboard, it throws some of these guys off.
Yeah, apparently wasn't a deal for Alabama. They shot through it, but everybody else been a little tricky. So if Braden Smith goes 1 for 9 with 5 turnovers again, Purdue is absolutely screwed in this game. They're not going to win. They're not going to cover. He's got to be really good. These guards, like UConn's got big athletic guards that are going to defend the perimeter. That's going to give Braden Smith some problems. The other 2 guards actually shot well from 3. Fletcher Lawyer went 3 of 5 from downtown. Lance Jones went 4 of 9 from downtown. So the other kids picked up the slack a little bit for Braden Smith. But those 3 guards are going to have to knock down some threes. Let's see, they made 8 combined last night, which is actually pretty good. They're going to have to do better than that to hang in there with UConn.
All right, what about UConn's best scorers and how they need to come through? Besides, I think everyone's going to be focusing on Clang and Edey, right? That's the one.
That's the matchup.
That's the matchup of the night for sure. But then you have guys like Tristan Newton, the team's leading scorer for UConn. Big performance in the round of 32, Jules, and in the Sweet 16, but had just 5 points in the Elite 8. And then last night's Final Four matchup had just 12 points.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Stephon Castle last night for UConn.
Yeah, he's had a decent tournament so far, too.
He should be a top 5 pick if he can get that jump shot going down. That's what NBA scouts really want to see from Castle, get that jump shot down.
Yeah, so Castle's
be a really elite prospect.
Been a little inconsistent. He went 14, 7, 16, 2, and then 21
last night
performance.
On an efficient 7 of 13 shooting. He got to the free throw line. He shot 2 of 6 from 3, which is very good for him. He's not as much of a shooter. Castle played really well. I think he can give Purdue some trouble with his athleticism. Here's the key to this game for Purdue, really, because if you're most impressed with anything from Edey at its size, it's that he's been playing 40 minutes in these games. He's been playing the full game against Tennessee. He sat for like 30 seconds. He played the full game against NC State. So if he's going to do that, UConn does rest Clang. Clang played 29 minutes last night, which meant Johnson off the bench plays 10, 11 minutes.
Okay.
When they do that and sacrifice the size and go from Clang to Johnson, that's when Edey is going to have his, his mismatch. Are they going to be able to? Well, first of all, will Hurley do that, or will he try and play Clang 35 minutes if he doesn't get in foul trouble, so he has that matchup. Or if he goes the regular rotation and gives Johnson a quarter of those minutes, 10 minutes, is Purdue going to be able to win those 3-4 minute stints that Clingan is off the floor? That's going to be huge in this game as well.
All right, so let me ask you this before we head to break. Mentioned it at the top of the show. Huskies have rattled off 10-plus point victories every March Madness game, became the 5th team to record a double-digit margin in all 6 NCAA tournament wins. That was last year. They could do it again, which brings me to my question. How about winning margin here on the DK Sportsbook? How about UConn then? If they can continue this run, keep beating teams by at least 10 points, you can get UConn to win by 10-13 at plus 500 odds.
I'm not going to put myself in that window for the national championship game and be rooting for a 10-13 point win.
They did it last year in the national title
Do I
game.
think they win by double digits? Yes, I think they win by double digits. What am I doing in this game? If I'm coming in with no futures in pocket, I'm laying the points with UConn, and I'm playing some form of the under. Maybe if you're laying the points with UConn, you feel better about just betting Purdue team total under 70.5 rather than the under 146 for the game. But early feel for this game, and I can tell you the early feel is not going to change. UConn in the under.
Maybe it'll change by midnight tomorrow night when this game finally tips off.
No.
All right, Masters Week arrives tomorrow. I know what a big Jordan Spieth fan you
Spieth.
are.
That guy.
We're poking over to
I can beat Jordan Spieth out on.
No, you could.
Yeah, I can.
No, you can't even beat Samir on the golf course. We're going to poke over to the DK Sportsbook with Jeff and Matt. They're going to help you get a leg up on all your bets before the boys get going at Augusta National. right, folks, so earlier in the show, we helped you tackle the DFS side of Masters Week, which tees off tomorrow. First round on Thursday, helping you build a money-making lineup ahead of that millionaire contest you will all be entering for $10. So right now, let's tackle it from a sports betting angle here. Another way for you to get a leg up, by the way, absolutely free. You can download the VSiN Masters Betting Primer here. It's perfect for those of you just firing up your golf betting cards for the season. If you haven't been paying attention to what's gone down thus far, you got golfer profiles, early best bets before the first round tees off here in about 3.5 days. And a man who contributed to said betting primer joins us right now. VSiN's Matt Brown, along with fellow gorgeous golf guru, that's Jeff Ulrich, of DraftKings Network here. So, Matty, we're going to take a look right now of the guys with the 10 best odds entering Augusta this week. You can see where they finished last year in this event. You can see their best finish throughout their career at Augusta. But you tell me right now, because you're going to be there later this week as a fan, what's the top storyline you're following as the best golfers in the world make their way to Georgia this week?
I appreciate you mentioning that, though, off the top, and I didn't have to do the humble brag thing.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you
we got you covered.
I'm glad you snuck that in there, and I didn't have to do that. That's always appreciated. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a couple different things. Just the live guys are always going to be a story heading into this because I'm a super data-driven golf better, and it's kind of limited data. You kind of have to go with a little bit of leap of faith with some of these dudes. You're just going with an eye test type deal, and some of them even is just on feel, right? Some pedigree stuff like a guys like Rahm and Koepka, et cetera, and stuff like that. And then the other things for me, just some of the big names that have really struggled here to start 2024. Your Patrick Cantlays, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, even to a lesser extent, depending on what, goes down over in Texas. But I mean, Rory McIlroy, all these guys that you can kind of poke holes in their games. I mean, these are guys that have been super, super consistent over the last several years and have just not really gotten it done for 4 rounds here so far in 2024.
Jeff, what's atop your list of Masters storylines here?
I mean, the first 2 days, the probably the biggest story is going to be Tiger Woods. Mm-hmm. I mean, it always is. He's obviously back. I know he hasn't been talked about too much. We haven't seen him much, but there's going to be a lot of cameras and eyes on him. And then I think as the tournament gets deeper, it's going to focus on guys like, it's basically going to be PGA versus Liv, I think. And can anyone beat Scottie Scheffler? And does Scottie Scheffler's putting stroke show up and kind of make a mockery of this? He's plus 400. It's the shortest favorite we've seen at a major in a long, long time, certainly at this tournament. And I think Scheffler is kind of the story, even though obviously in his last start, he kind of didn't get it done. But as we head into the weekend, I really think that Scheffler is going to be the guy to focus on. And if he's not, in the lead or in contention, it's going to be, these live guys potentially trying to snag another major. So obviously a ton of storylines. We could sit here and talk about all the top players. Rory, first timers like, Schauffele. Is Bryson going to get involved? But I really think that Scottie Scheffler is where the weekend focus is going to be, and whether he can, that putting stroke shows up and he takes another major down. I
mean, but with his odds so short, Jeff, what's your betting approach with him? We know he won at Augusta in 2022. I think that was when he 4-putted the last hole to win the Masters by 3 shots there. I remember all sitting on our couch, being like, oh my God, is this actually happening? But this year, he's by far the best golfer on the planet right now, Jeff, blowing away the field at the API, winning the Players here. So what do you do with a guy with numbers that short, but who is playing that well?
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing that well tee to green and you're that good at golf, you can afford to 4-putt. That's a little scary when you actually think about it that way, right? That he won while 4-putting. But, look, it's a golf tournament at plus 400. I mean, I just the value on Scottie Scheffler has kind of dried up. I mean, obviously, if you got on him early in the season, even if you got him like plus 650, you're probably feeling pretty good about it. But certainly right now, I think the way to play Scottie Scheffler is either look for an opportunity in running. It's also the Masters week. There's going to be potential bonuses out there, boosts and stuff like that you could take advantage of. Maybe you parlay Scottie Scheffler with something during the week to get his number up. But at plus 400, he's just not a player I would be betting at that price personally. It's a major. We've got so many dark horses, random things that could happen. We don't know what these live guys are going to do. And again, as we saw, Scotty Scheffler can miss 5-footers and kind of give golf tournaments away still. It's golf. It's a hard game. Plus 400 is just too short for me in this era of golf. I would stay away unless you can, again, get some kind of bonus bet on him. But I really do think looking at Scheffler in running and maybe putting away a little money aside for that is the way to go. All
right, Matt, what can we find in that betting guide about Scotty Scheffler here? For all his brilliance, he has yet to claim a second major title here. So that's something he's going to be eager to change as soon as possible. And the next chance for that is this week.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd what he's been able to do. And I grew up in the Tiger era. I understand you think of Tiger Woods and everybody else, but what Scotty Scheffler is doing right now against this depth of field and against this competition, it really is. It's historic. I mean, the guy is going out every single week and finishing inside the top 10. And I look at it like this. I think you got to get some sort of exposure to him, be it in placement markets, head-to-heads, group bettings, DFS, whatever it might be. I don't think you want to be naked to Scotty Scheffler for the Masters week because the guy is just too good. And it's very, very, very unlikely for him to go out there and just completely lay an egg in this thing. So, I mean, if we kind of look, number one on tour in scoring average, birdie average, strokes gained total, tee to green, approach, bogey avoidance, greens in regulation. He's 4th in around the green, 10th in scrambling. I could go on and on and on and on. So I think you want to have some sort of exposure, some way, shape, or form. I just don't know if an outright ticket is exactly how I'm going to go about it.
Matt, I'm glad you brought up Tiger Woods, too, because it's not since Tiger Woods in 2001 and 2002 has the Masters had a repeat champion, but Jon Rahm is looking to change that this year. It's going to be a little different, though, this year, Matt, because he's going to have to deal with questions about his sharpness, his motivation, while also undertaking all the usual roles of a defending Masters champion throughout the week here. So how do you like his number right now? Not even the second best outright odds on the board. That goes to Rory. But what's your approach with Jon Rahm?
Yeah, I mean, he's at least playing mind games to start things off. The Masters dinner, he's put confusing food on there. Nobody knows what, like all his competition has no idea what's going on. So at least he started with the mind games already with that. Look, I think a plus money top 10 on Jon Rahm isn't crazy in my opinion. It's like I said with these live guys, it's a little bit of a leap of faith with all this because we don't have the hard data and certainly not as deep data that we like to have that we get with these PGA Tour guys, but he's played in 4 live events in 2024, T3, 8th, 5th, and another T8. So not bad form, but nothing to let us believe that he's in super peak form either. So, look, you're still getting plus money on a top 10 of a guy that is still, in my opinion, probably one of the very best golfers in the world, though we don't get to see it on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, what's more here is his game is made for Augusta National here, so I'm going to be shocked if he's not in contention come Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I would not bet Jon Rahm outright at plus 1,200. I do think you'll see potentially some drift on his odds. I wouldn't be shocked if he got up to, in the plus 1,600 range. I just don't think he's going to be that popular a pick with all the unknowns. But I like Matt's idea as well. And I think Jon Rahm is another guy to look for in play. I mean, I really, with all the stuff that he's got going on, defending champion, more questions this year, I really think that you could see Jon Rahm potentially just start a little bit slower, but an in-play top 10 sounds really good to me. Certainly by the time the weekend comes around, I think Jon Rahm will probably be, hitting peak form and even plus 130, just as the odds we get now. I like that, but not a guy I'm necessarily looking to repeat. There's just too many question marks with Jon Rahm. He also just had another child. It just seems like a lot going on in his world. He's got to do the dinner. So I would basically fade him from an outright standpoint. But again, another player certainly to look at in the top 10 market.
And Jeff, more than anybody, kids ruin absolutely everything. Gentlemen, just your favorite bet right now on your Masters card, Jeff.
I mean, every year it's a repeat with me, but Tony Finau plus 4,000 just doesn't seem to be getting enough respect. Runner up his last time out, tee to green. Gained 14 strokes, tee to green in Houston. The round the green game. I really think that there's a difference between the lead up from last year and this year with Finau. I don't think he's getting enough respect. I really like the outright number, and I like him for top 10 too at plus 330. I think that's very good for a player who has gone off in the final group at Augusta before.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to remember when betting the Masters, right? I mean, we're talking at a field only about 87, 88 guys this year, and on top of that, there's about 30 of them that have almost zero win equity. So that's the other thing to think about when you're filling out your card. You're kind of really only betting a field of about 50 golfers because you have the olds and then you have the amateurs and then you have all the stuff like that. So it's like those guys, there's there's like 30 guys at 200 to 1 or longer in this field over at DraftKings right now, right? So there's almost no win equity in those guys. So for me, you look at a guy like Will Zalatoris, he plays well on hard courses. He plays well in these super strong fields. Again, it's him against just 50 other guys, in my personal opinion, as far as going out there and trying to get this done. And a guy that I think is finally healthy, you know, back from all these injuries that he's been dealing with for the last couple of seasons. And if it wasn't for him having all those injuries and what we've seen over the last couple of years, the odds of 35 to 1 would be much, much shorter on a guy like Will Zalatoris. So I like him this week.
Yeah, guys in the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, Live Golf, number of amateurs, all the old former winners who are 80 years old. It's why Brooks Koepka said this past week, guys, statistically, this is his best shot to win his next major here because of that field. Guys, really, really nice work. Really appreciate the help, Matt. Have fun at Augusta National. Behave yourself, okay? We've got more help on the other side. This time we're talking women's basketball. 2 teams left standing. Who to back to win it all when the sweat returns. It's the rematch we've all been waiting for. Caitlin Clark's final game, South Carolina's quest for perfection. This afternoon's national championship will indeed have it all. So we're bringing in Sabrina Merchant of The Athletic back again, part of our bracket breakdown special a few weeks ago. And now she's here to break down the Natty because she's been following the action every day throughout the season. Hell of a game Friday night here, Sabrina. Iowa barely squeaking past UConn. So for you, how close did it come to living up to all the hype?
You know, I think it hit every bit of hype you could have imagined because UConn comes out with the first punch, looks like the team that historically has been in the Final Four, knows how to handle these situations. They have really balanced contributions throughout their whole roster. You know, Paige has a pretty decent game. Aaliyah Edwards is playing well. KK Arnold is playing well. They're really getting into Caitlin Clark. You know, doesn't have a three-pointer at halftime. I think only has 6 points at halftime. So they were doing everything that you'd want to really stifle Iowa. And then the Hawkeyes, like a great team, like a number one seed, make their adjustments at halftime. Things start to open up for Caitlin. She starts getting the shots, the logo threes going. It was like, I think, an 80-20 Hawkeyes crowd in Cleveland. So it definitely felt like a home game for Iowa when those threes started falling. And they just made all the plays they needed to at the end, right down to Gabby Marshall telling the refs to look for moving screens. And they found one on that last play, and there it was.
I mean, speaking of that last play too, we could go back and forth all day. Like if it was the right call, wrong call. I mean, you know how people are on Twitter, very nice to each other about it. How much do controversial finishes, though, Sabrina, like this, take away from the incredible performances from the players?
You know, I kind of think it adds to it because it just shines another light on the game, right? And we're not talking about players who messed up in the final situations. We're talking about refs who messed up in the final situations. So I don't think it takes away from the players and the teams necessarily. Personally, I'd rather not talk about the final play, although I did have to write about it. So maybe that's a little critical. But, you know, I think just having a big moment that everybody's talking about, that everyone will remember when you think about UConn, Iowa, isn't necessarily a bad thing because you think about the screen for a second and then you remember like, oh yeah, that was the game when Caitlin Clark went up against Paige Beckers. That was the game when Iowa got back to the national title game. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that there is a flashbulb moment that happened at the end of the game. I think it's just a reflection of how closely contested it was and what the stakes were and how much drama there was involved.
Well, the game that wasn't as close, the other one, South Carolina, at least it was at halftime. It was a 1-point game there against NC State. Where did that monster second half surge come from?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about South Carolina. When they're playing okay, they can just dip into their bench and somebody comes in and unleashes an entirely new level for the Gamecocks. You look at Friday's game against NC State, and yeah, you know, they're doing fine. You know, Camila Cardoso is exerting her advantage, but nobody else is really creating any separation. And what Dawn Staley decides to do at halftime is just really lean into their front court advantage. So she subs out her starter, Chloe Kitts, for Ashlyn Watkins, and Ashlyn Watkins is maybe the best athlete playing women's basketball in the country, just an incredible leaper, an incredible lateral mover, and she ends up collecting 20 rebounds on the night against NC State, blocks a couple shots in the paint. I mean, just a terrifying, absolutely terrifying defensive presence that the Wolfpack had just zero idea what to do with. So for South Carolina to just say, hey, like, we're doing fine, but we can make things just a little bit better with that bench is, I think, a testament to how they've been playing all season, where they have 9 who can legitimately impact the outcome of a game on any given night.
And now the national championship stage is set here. And while Iowa has the reigning national player of the year, Sabrina, in Caitlin Clark, the Hawkeyes 6.5-point underdogs today in the eyes of odds makers and on the DK Sportsbook. How do you see this one playing out?
I'm so very terrible at making these predictions. I think about last year. I think about last year when Iowa was playing South Carolina in the Final Four, and not a soul had Iowa winning that game. And obviously we know what happens. Caitlin Clark's, I think, legend is really born on that night. And then you think about Iowa playing LSU in the national title game, and not a soul had Iowa losing that game. And here we are a year later. Iowa wasn't the champion. South Carolina wasn't the champion. But one of them will be today. And I'm a little concerned by how much action is on South Carolina, actually, because I feel very good about the advantages South Carolina does have. Like I mentioned, their depth. They've played Iowa before. They're not going to be thrown by the experience of having to defend Caitlin Clark. You know, they have some film they can look at from just a season ago. And Iowa's a little bit smaller than they were in that Final Four meeting in 2023. So I do think South Carolina matches up well, but God, the fact that everybody and their mother is picking South Carolina makes me wonder what we're going to see from Caitlin Clark. Because, I mean, this is it, right? We're talking, like you said, not just the reigning National Player of the Year, one of the very best to ever play college basketball. And this is her final 40 minutes, right? So part of me is thinking maybe we're just going to get the storybook. Maybe we're going to get an all-time great stamping her legacy with the one thing that's missing, which is a national title.
So how do they hamper Clark's game? I know you mentioned they got the game tape from last year. Maybe they look at what UConn did, because Huskies did a pretty good job controlling her in the Final Four.
Yeah, it's interesting because those are two dramatically different approaches. Like last year, they decided we'll let Clark get hers, but we're going to make sure none of the shooters get anything. So it was 3 defenders staying locked in on those wings, and then we're going to guard Clark and her center in the middle of the floor. And it didn't really work, right? Clark ends up with 41 points. Her pick and roll partner back then, Monica Sonano, had 18, and the middle of the floor was just far too open. So I think they're probably going to take a page out of UConn's book, put a lot of pressure on the ball, like we saw with Nika Mule with the Huskies, just really getting into Caitlin's grill, trying to make her uncomfortable, speed up the offense so that Iowa doesn't get to play late into the shot clock. I think we're going to see a lot of switching of defenders. You have Raven Johnson from South Carolina who can take that matchup. You have Bree Hall. You have some players off the bench who can step in and potentially, get thrown into the mix. And I think South Carolina's bigs are mobile enough this year where they can, trap, hedge a little bit, put 2 on the ball when necessary if Clark is trying to run some pick and roll. So I think South Carolina just is going to be a little bit more adaptive than they were last year. They pretty much just threw one scheme at Caitlin and let her figure it out and then didn't do anything different for the rest of the game, which you just can't do against a great player. So I think we're going to see a lot of pressure, a lot of switching, a lot of mixing up, and just try to keep Caitlin off rhythm all game.
It's crazy, too, because South Carolina lost all 5 of its starters last year. It's a whole new starting 5 here. You're talking about putting more pressure on Clark, getting in her grill. So then how much more pressure falls on the role players then for Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to need to see Kate Martin, Gabby Marshall, Sydney Falter make some shots. Like, I think South Carolina doesn't want to lose to Caitlin Clark. If they're going to lose, it's going to be because of a team effort from Iowa. And those role players have been, hit or miss over the course of the postseason. Like that's what happens with role players. I think Gabby Marshall is really going to be the key. Like she's going to have to hit some threes. We've seen her make really big defensive plays over the course of this postseason. Obviously, trying the moving screen against Leah Edwards comes to mind, but she's had key deflections, key steals, key block in the Big Ten tournament that helped them win that conference championship. But she's going to have to hit some shots. And I think, we saw Kate Martin really just hit 2 big buckets at the end of Iowa UConn on Friday night. And that's, again, her last game of her college career, Gabby's last game of her college career. Those seniors are really going to have to come through because I do believe that South Carolina is going to make it a mission to not let Caitlin beat them.
I feel like the importance of this moment for women's sports can't be overstated here. We were talking before we came on live here, Sabrina, and that Iowa victory over UConn at the women's Final Four on Friday, it averaged 14.2 million viewers on ESPN, making it the most viewed women's basketball game on record and the largest audience for an ESPN basketball broadcast. So the product has been spectacular. I believe the tournament's been much more compelling than on the men's side. Reporters like you shining a light on the sport deserve a lot of credit for that as well. What do you think ratings will be like for this game this afternoon?
So we have an internal prop bet of 16.9 as the over-under for today's game.
Nice.
I took the over, but I just think it's so gratifying that not only are the Caitlin games drawing a big audience because, obviously you hope that this attention continues beyond her, but like you look at that 7 million number that South Carolina NC State got on Friday night, and that wasn't even a particularly competitive game after the first half. And, LSU Iowa, obviously it was a ratings bonanza last Monday in the Elite 8, but that USC UConn game afterwards also was upwards of 5 million. So you think about all of the stars that are continuing in women's basketball, like Paige Beckers, like Juju Watkins, who will be able to carry on that legacy that Caitlin Clark has just exploded over the last year. I mean, I do think that Caitlin is a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, but the fact that her matchups have been able to shine a light on all of these other players who will be continuing in the game moving forward is just awesome. And like you said, yeah, the product is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe there are a few upsets in the women's tournament, but I think what that results in is we get really great games all the way down the line. All of these excellent teams that excelled over the course of the regular season still get to play in the second and third weekends of the tournament. And I think the games have lived up to it.
All right, so just very quickly here, we have a minute to go in this segment. We could do a full segment discussing the hot topic of these ladies deciding to go pro versus staying in school. right call for Clark and Reese to head to the WNBA?
Definitely for Clark. I mean, she's accomplished everything she needs to at the college level other than a title. And if she was just to hang around for another year for the hope of 6 games in March going right, I think that would do a disservice to the rest of, her program and her team. Like, she's the national leading scorer in all of college basketball, right? She's 3rd all time in assists. What's she going to do? Just make those records absolutely impossible to break. It doesn't make any sense. She's ready to test her talents at the next level, whether that's the Olympics or the WNBA. She's just proven that, with all due respect, she's too good for the college game at this point. Angel was a bit of a different question because I think, we can see a lot of potential points of development still in her game, but, if she wants to go pro and make those developments as a pro, like, who might have judged someone who doesn't want to go to college class anymore, right?
All right, Sabrina, it was good seeing you. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to cool down this show next, wrapping it up with some thoughts on tomorrow's men's national championship. All right, back here to wrap up a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat. It has been a tremendous ride with both of you and all of you watching here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Let's go ahead and cool things off. So we'll kind of revisit some of the top bets and storylines that we've been discussing over the past hour and 45 minutes or so. Just, Jules, real quick, we're coming off that segment with Sabrina Merchant of The Athletic talking about the women's game here. Why do you think, just the women's tournament, the women's game this year in general has been so much more popular than what we've seen on the men's side? Is it due to just name and star power, and there's not really that Caitlin Clark in the men's game, although you could make an argument maybe about Edie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the men's game is doing fine, but the ladies right now are, taking over that star power for sure. And it starts with Caitlin Clark becoming that Steph Curry type of figure. And then there's a trickle-down effect with a lot of other really good players right now. So the women's game hasn't really been in a better spot than it is right now in terms of star power. And you're seeing that pay off. And it'll be really interesting to see with Caitlin Clark and others going to the WNBA how they, kind of snowball this energy and bring it into the WNBA because it, on one side of it, you're not going up against any other basketball. It's over the summer. You should be able to get people to watch it. On the other side of it, I think the reason you kind of get some of these ratings is UConn fans are UConn fans.
Yeah,
so you're gonna watch
powerhouse
UConn
for decades.
But when you play for, I won't use the team name, but just like Team X in the WNBA, you've had to build up that following. Whereas a UConn, an LSU, you already have a giant fan base that can tune into these games. So the WNBA has to figure out how to get those fan bases to grow with these kind of, they're startups because they're newer franchises.
All right, Bukes, big Sunday here in baseball, second Sunday of the season. Shout out to our Red Sox, looking pretty decent. We'll talk about it on today's episode of 1901, a Boston baseball podcast. Did I get that? Did I get the name of our podcast right?
Great plug.
Okay.
Shout out to Anthony Rendon, my favorite baseball player.
You know what? Love it. Been enjoying watching him. He's collected a hit in 2 straight games. So he's averaging $30 million.
He's heating up right since now. I claimed him as my favorite player. I don't like this. He's supposed to be bad at baseball while stealing all the money.
Give him a couple days.
Just remind me again what you like on today's baseball slate here.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier in the show, but Diamondbacks go over 3.5 runs today against the Braves, and specifically Chris Sale, because, this Diamondbacks team, as we saw yesterday, even though they did lose, is going to be fantastic against lefties. This team is built to go against left-handed pitching, and we've seen that in the results already. 414 WOBA, 154 WRC plus against lefties so far this season. 26 runs scored. That leads the league against left-handed pitching. Sale had a good first start against the Phillies, but if you look at his more advanced numbers, kind of indicates that maybe he was a little bit lucky with the defense behind him. Despite only giving up 2 runs in that start against the Phillies, he had a 9.01 expected ERA in that game, which means that the damage could have been a lot more against him. I don't think he's going to get out of here scot-free against the Diamondbacks team that's been very good against lefties. Just another one, too, that I like as well, Baltimore and Pittsburgh to go over 8.5 runs in that game there today. The Pirates, not only have they been one of the best teams in baseball, they've also been one of the best teams at hitting the over as well. They've already gone 7-2 to the over on the game total so far this season. Baltimore is at 4-3. Pretty average pitching matchup here. We got Dean Kremer going for the Orioles, Marco Gonzalez going for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Gonzalez has brutal numbers overall back when he was with Seattle. If you look at the second time he goes through the batting order, he had a 7.23 ERA, 425 WOBA against batters in that type of scenario. I think this game is going to go over that game total of 8.5 runs, which was, by the way, 9 when we started the show.
And the Pirates sell one of the saddest looking hot dogs I've ever seen. It was
pretty brutal because, especially for a sport that's hyping up all their ballpark.
And that's a great food city, and I love Pittsburgh.
And
Did you see a picture of it?
I saw a picture of what it was kind of advertised to look like, and then I saw a real one out in the wild.
It's like, you see a burger on McDonald's on a commercial, and it never looks like that when you get it.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be covered in pierogies, and there was one pierogi.
Yeah,
this was the pulled pork one, right?
Yeah, it looked like some of Bob's old hot relish.
Maybe I'm
and there
wrong.
were 3 pickles on it, and you guys know me. I'm not a pickle guy, but I'm a relish guy.
Yes, yeah, we know you're. But I love pulled pork. So pulled pork and hot dog sounds delicious.
Well,
but then when you put I can do without.
It was sad looking. Real quick, because you talked about kind of the fallout of the Strider injury and maybe starting to target like the Phillies there. But what about the Bieber injury for the AL Central?
So I'm still on the Royals to win that division. I still think that division, especially with the Bieber injury, is more wide open than ever, because when you looked at the odds to win the division, it's been kind of shuffling around, but it was the Twins to win, which I still think they have no shot of winning. I still don't understand why they're favored. So it was the Twins, and then it's been like back and forth between the Tigers and the Guardians, and then you have the Royals, who have the fourth, best odds to win here. But they're at 7-1. But once upon a time, they were 14-1 to win this division before the season started. I still think that the Royals are the better team. We've seen them scuffle a little bit out of the gate here, but love that offense. Love what they did with their pitching. They got a great closer at the back end there with Will Smith to close out these games. I still think that they're the best team in that division, in a division that is going to be very wide open, but even more so with that Bieber injury, because that rotation really kind of struggled to begin with. Now you take out by far their best pitcher in Shane Bieber. Twins don't have the pitching. There's just not a lot to like about that division. So in a wide open division, getting the Royals still at 7-1, I think it's still worth taking a look at.
MLB's got this elbow injury problem right now, and it was a costly 24-hour span for pitchers in Major League Baseball there with Bieber and with Strider.
Bieber, Strider, and then Perez earlier this season with the Marlins. It's been brutal. You know what? I am so glad I do not have a Cy Young bet. I'm glad I didn't put anything down right now.
Those markets got to be like super wide open, because you also don't know if a guy's even going to make it another few months.
Who was the leader to win it in the American League? It was Cole.
It feels silly to do that like preseason or during spring training with just MVP, the way things are going.
MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year.
At what point then do you hop on that if it's a market that interests you?
Last year I got some Blake Snell 45-1 in like June, and he won. So I don't know. You see at the midway point who's pitching well, who isn't, who's in position to gain some ground, and injuries are still part of it. But if half the season is in the books, you've eliminated half the chance of injury, and you get a better chance.
But that's when I had the Robbie Ray play, when I got him at 80-1.
Mid-season, right?
That was in just about the beginning of July.
Yeah.
And there were guys in front of him.
Just wait.
At the time, like Tyler Glasnow.
Just wait, dude. Just chill.
Like Tyler Glasnow had better odds than him, and Glasnow wasn't even pitching. He was on the injured list. I'm like, how does this make any sense?
Yeah.
So as the season progresses and things start to come a little bit clearer, you can take some of those long shots, like just looking at schedules or whatnot. But betting preseason Cy Young MVP, it makes no sense to me.
Wait on that, but you don't have much time.
Unless you're taking a long shot, right? Like you shouldn't be betting favorites. For any really awards, but specifically Cy Young, MVP, because so much can change from the beginning of the season.
Sure.
It doesn't make sense.
Not a whole lot can change between right now and 9:20 Eastern time tomorrow night, when the men's national championship tips off in Arizona between Purdue and UConn. Just Jules, your overall favorite bet right now for this game. Feel free to give out anything else you like, because we have 2 minutes to go on the show.
Yeah, I'm torn between I'll say just lay it with UConn, because I've been laying it with UConn all along, and it keeps working. So I think they're going to have one of those runs. They're going to win with margin. Hopefully you have something in pocket where you just need them to win, because Purdue is going to be their toughest test over the last couple of years in this tournament. So I'll still lay it with UConn. I like the matchup for them. They got the guy that can defend Edey, or at least give it the best crack, and Klingon. So lay it with UConn, but I do really like whether you want to play, and I haven't decided, I'll be on one of these, either full game under, first half under, or Purdue team total under. The tempo, UConn's one of the slowest paced tempos in the nation. Purdue's 175. They're going to dump it down to Edey. They're going to be feeling each other out. What's the game plan? I think this game's going to start pretty slow, so I'm confident that the under in some form or fashion should be the side.
And just before we take off, anything else you'd like to remind our NBA betting audience right now, as we have a week to go? What did you say earlier? Just
be very
careful.
Yeah, almost don't bet it, but you can bet it, but you got to make sure you check what's happening before you bet it. And if you're going to bet it live, make sure you're watching the game. Celtics the other night, pull everybody, and just don't need to get that game against the Kings. It was going to clearly be, even though the Kings fell a point short, it was clearly going to be Kings' comeback, and it was. So if you're tuning into these games and know these teams' motivations, you can still do all right, but I would proceed with caution, Save that money for a week from now. We're gonna have great playing games.
Save it for the Masters.
We're gonna have I'll lose it on the Masters, but I hopefully will be making money in the NBA playoffs.
Indeed, and you and I are going to be going to a playoff game together. You said you will be bringing me.
We will go. We will go to a game. You owe me for the tickets. Emerson, said he's willing to pay 25% of the ticket's value in food and beverage.
Wow, what a guy!
That's right.
That's the type of guy he is.
One chicken finger at TD Garden, by the way. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us all weekend long. We're back here. Jules isn't. Jules is gone once again next weekend. We'll figure something out.
I've been working through illness for
8 a.m. Eastern time next Saturday.
Guy works once a month.